Hi, I'm Kristen Goodwin. On this episode of the Fox News Rundown, Vice President Mike Pence sits down with Fox's John Decker to discuss his role as the head of the coronavirus task force and plans to reopen the country. Also, Election Day is just over 6 months away. Fox News Sunday host Chris Wallace joins host Chris Foster to discuss how he feels the pandemic and sexual assault allegations against former Vice President Joe Biden could impact the race to the White House. Plus commentary from Guy Benson, host of The Guy Benson Show. The Fox News Rundown is a daily news podcast where we take a deeper look at the stories important to you. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast player by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
I'm Sandra Smith.
I'm Brett Baer.
I'm Ainsley Earhart, and this is the Fox News Rundown.
Friday, May 1st, 2020. I'm John Decker. Vice President Mike Pence says he's confident about the White House's plan to combat the coronavirus, rebuild our economy, and restore some normalcy to everyday life.
Our primary objective is to get America safely back open, get America back to work, and put the coronavirus in the past.
I'm Chris Foster. Fox News Sunday host Chris Wallace says about the coronavirus outbreak and the presidential election.
Maybe it comes down to this. Do I have confidence that this is the guy I want to lead the country and handle any particular crisis over the next 4 years? And Lord knows we don't have any idea what those will be.
And I'm Guy Benson. I've got the final word on the Fox News Rundown.
It's been over 2 months since the White House established the coronavirus task force. At first, their focus was on preventing and containing the spread of COVID-19 and helping hospitals cope with the unprecedented health crisis. In recent weeks, after seeing progress on that front and seeing signs that social distancing efforts have flattened the curves in many parts of the country, the task force has since pivoted, working on plans to safely reopen America's economy, which has been devastated by strict stay-at-home mandates and recommendations. Vice President Mike Pence heads the White House Coronavirus Task Force, and I spoke to him after he toured an Indiana GM plant that is now manufacturing ventilators. The Vice President says America has come a long way.
I just couldn't be more inspired by the workforce here, by the ingenuity. You think 1 month ago, this was an empty factory. 17 days, they stood up a ventilator manufacturing line, thanks to that great entrepreneurial company, Ventec and General Motors. They worked with our administration. President Trump used the Defense Production Act to secure supplies to be able to produce. They stood up the plant in 17 days. 3 days later, they produced their first ventilator. And in 1 month, 600 ventilators are in hospitals and healthcare facilities around the country. And these people said it well. One team, one mission, 1 month. But this is one amazing group of Americans. But they're not alone. I was at GE Healthcare a week ago in Wisconsin, and the same speed and collaboration producing ventilators. Ford Motor Company is also working. I mean, you see the whole of America response that President Trump has marshaled in connection with the coronavirus epidemic. And you come and see it here at the ground level with hardworking Americans. It's just, I couldn't be more proud.
This is a very pivotal day in the sense that guidelines are expiring that you were promoting pretty much every day inside the White House press briefing room. You were a governor, and having that experience, what type of advice would you give to the nation's governors in terms of opening up their economies right now?
Well, let me say that no one wants to open up America again more than President Donald Trump. And our administration is working very closely with states around the country to implement the guidelines for opening up America that we issued the better part of 2 weeks ago. 31 states, as we speak today, have unveiled plans to reopen their economies. We believe more will follow soon. But the reason why we're in that position is because 45 days ago, at the President's direction, our coronavirus task force worked with our best scientists to release guidelines to slow the spread, and the American people put it into practice. And when you look at the guidance that we're giving states to reopen in 3 different phases this economy, you'll see all of those social distancing recommendations, focus on the vulnerable population, personal hygiene, best business practices. They're all incorporated in that plan as well. And we're very encouraged to see states around the country not only beginning to move toward reopening, but reopening in a safe and responsible way.
Give me a sense, Mr. Vice President, about whether you believe states all around the country are prepared as far as testing kits are concerned, testing for coronavirus.
Well, we have been scaling testing at a level no other country in the world has done since the outset of the coronavirus epidemic. It truly is remarkable to think that we're more than 6 million tests performed all across the country when the better part of a month ago we had just a little bit more than 80,000 tests. It's because the president brought together, like you saw here in Indiana today, private industry, commercial laboratories who developed new testing platforms and created the kind of collaboration that's made it possible for us to expand testing rapidly. Now, we believe today every state in America has the capacity to do the testing that we recommend needs to be done for phase 1 reopening. But we're literally working around the clock with governors in all 50 states and our territories to continue to expand testing so that as we continue to reopen and as businesses begin to implement their own policies, that we'll have a sufficient amount of testing. But we are literally on track to be doing more than 2 million tests a week in the month of May. And that's a great tribute to American ingenuity and the leadership of President Donald Trump.
Let's talk a little bit, Mr. Vice President, about the economic impacts. And we all know this, that the economy's just been battered. I know the president is an optimist. You're an optimist, too, about turning this around by the third, fourth quarter of this year. But we just saw these numbers about the number of Americans filing for unemployment claims, 3.8 million, now up to 30 million over the past 6 weeks. You stepped up, your administration stepped up, as well as Congress, in passing the PPP twice. You replenished it. Does more need to be done to give a boost to the U.S. economy beyond what's already been done?
Well, I'm truly grateful for the bipartisan support for the relief for American families, direct payments that have all gone out to Americans, family of 4 receiving $3,400 in a single payment. As you mentioned, the Paycheck Protection that was recently expanded allows small businesses around America to keep people on the payroll for 2 months so that they can retain that workforce and people have the means while they're off work. We're also providing resources to larger businesses that are critical industries, not only airlines, but hotels and a broad range of businesses that are at the core of our economy. Can come through this. And the president's made it clear we're going to do whatever it takes to see the American people, American families, and American businesses, large and small, through this time. But the most important thing we can do is put the coronavirus behind us. And the good news is, as the president reflected just a few days ago, we're seeing great progress, even in the areas most profoundly impacted by the coronavirus. We're seeing stabilization. We're seeing a drop in hospitalizations. We're seeing a decline in cases. And it's all a testament to the American people, to their willingness to put into practice the social distancing guidelines that we unveiled 45 days ago. It's a testament to state leadership. And whether there is more to be done, the president said we're open to additional support for states around the country. But for now, our primary objective is to get America safely back open, get America back to work, and put the coronavirus in the past.
You have spoken about, on numerous occasions, about nursing facilities and the devastating impact that this virus has had on those facilities. Over 10,000 of our most vulnerable population dying because of the coronavirus. What more needs to be done to protect the most vulnerable in our society, Mr. Vice President?
Well, we learned early on that the seniors with serious underlying health conditions were especially vulnerable to devastating medical results with the coronavirus. And it's one of the reasons why we raise the standards for every nursing home in America. It's the reason why we deployed all 8,000 of our inspectors to ensure infectious disease standards were complied with in every state in the country. We're surging resources, developing care packages right now to go to all 15,000 nursing homes in America. But when you look at the guidelines to open up America again, they include very specific detail about focusing testing resources, focusing attention, focusing social distancing and countermeasures on our long-term care and our seniors community. I mean, so long as the coronavirus is with us, we're all going to have to take special care of our seniors, particularly those with underlying health conditions or anyone with an immunodeficiency.
Would you be confident if you had a loved one in a nursing facility right now that they're getting not only the care they typically would always get, but also are being protected from this deadly virus?
I think nursing homes around America have truly done a remarkable job under very difficult circumstances. I mean, my mom is 85 years young, and she and my stepfather still live on their own. I can't imagine how tough it is for families not being able to go visit a loved one. So now you've got nursing home caregivers that are not only providing all the support they provide every day, but also filling in for family in many cases. And I must tell you that while we've seen some outbreaks in nursing homes, we've surged resources to deal with that. We've obviously seen heartbreaking loss, beginning in the first nursing home incident in Seattle. I truly believe America's long-term care facilities have stepped up and have met this moment, and we're just going to make sure they have the resources to continue to keep their residents safe.
Finally, Mr. Vice President, talk about some optimism that we got yesterday from one of the president's healthcare advisors, Dr. Anthony Fauci, regarding treatment for coronavirus. What more can you tell us about that? Are you as optimistic as Dr. Fauci seemed to be yesterday?
Well, Dr. Fauci unveiled the news of a study of remdesivir, which is a therapeutic, which we told the American people. The president pulled in all of the pharmaceutical companies early on, told them to go to work on developing not only vaccines, but therapeutics, which will give people relief if they contract the coronavirus. And I know now the FDA is considering an emergency use authorization to expand availability. Dr. Fauci referenced that yesterday, but I will tell you that as the president's made clear, we're going to use all means at our disposal to bring medications to the American people that'll bring relief. And breakthrough with remdesivir is encouraging news. It's, as the president said, it's a step in the direction of treatment, but the results from that study are truly promising, and now we're going to be working to make that more available to more Americans every day.
Do you still feel the beginning of June is the time when we'll get back to slowly our normal lives the way they were back in January before anybody even ever heard of coronavirus?
I think if the American people continue to practice social distancing, if they heed the guidance, particularly through any phased reopening from their state and local officials, I believe we could have much of this coronavirus epidemic behind us by early June. But it's going to take all of us and doing everything that we need to continue to do to get through this. But I have every confidence that we will. And as the summer goes forward, we'll continue to expand resources, expand testing, work to develop therapeutics and vaccines, and be ready for whatever may come in the future.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for your time, and thank you for your invitation to join you in your great state of Indiana. Really appreciate it.
Great to have you here. Thanks.
This is Guy Benson with your Fox News commentary coming up.
More businesses are opening in more states, with governors making decisions on what can open and with what restrictions. White House advisor Jared Kushner tells Fox he thinks this will be a transition month.
You'll see a lot of states starting to phase in the different reopening based on the safety guidelines that President Trump outlined on April 19th.
We found out this week that the economy shrank 4.8% in the first quarter of the year, and that includes really just a couple of weeks of coronavirus shutdowns, so the current quarter's looking worse. President Trump predicts.
I think next year is going to be an incredible year for our economy. I think the fourth quarter is going to be really, really good.
Will he even be president next year?
I don't think that this president is going to get blamed for the coronavirus and the economic impact per se.
Chris Wallace is the host of Fox News Sunday.
My guess is that he will be judged by how he handled it. I mean, this was a natural occurrence, a largely unforeseen disaster. It could have happened to anybody, but people will have a sense by September and October. Did he handle it as well as he could, or didn't he? And I think one of the keys to that, and I think you're seeing it starting right now, is how quickly we reopen. There's a lot of divide in the scientific community, in the political community, in the economic community about reopening. And there is the argument that, as you say, 1 out of 6 Americans has lost their job. There's a tremendous financial and psychic toll to be paid when 30 million people are out of work. We need to get open again. And then there are scientists who say you open again too soon and people get too close, you could get a second spike. And the second spike will be even worse because it'll really shake people's confidence that there's anybody in charge. I don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. But by September or October, we'll have a sense of what has happened. And my guess is it'll be that. Not the fact of the coronavirus or the fact of this huge recession, but how the president handled it. If he handled it well, as I've said before, I'll quote myself, if he handled it well, I don't see how he loses. If people perceive he handled it badly, I don't see how he wins.
Just anecdotally, I'm hearing and seeing anger at praise directed more at governors than the president when it comes to these reopenings or lack of reopenings. The people in Maine are mad at Governor Janet Mills, or they're happy with Governor Janet Mills. People in Georgia are mad or happy with Brian Kemp, not President Trump. I wonder if the president, if the reopening stuff does fall on individual governors and not the president.
Well, yes and no. I certainly agree. I mean, what you see in the polls, and it's fascinating, is approval. The most the highest ratings go to Anthony Fauci. I mean, everybody thinks he's the expert, he's the scientist, and all he's concerned about are the facts. And then it goes to governors, and the president is down considerably from the governors, and I think part of the feeling is that the governors have been driven more by data. And it's been very interesting with the president. When he started holding these briefings, there was a feeling of, my gosh, he's got 2 hours of airtime. He's on all the networks. Joe Biden is stuck in a basement in his home in Delaware in a little, jerry-rigged studio. This is a huge advantage for the president. But as the briefings went on, and they went on and on, they often went 2 hours, and the president would start blaming his political enemies and getting in fights with reporters. I don't think there's any question that they backfired on him, and that there was a feeling that he wasn't handling the crisis as much as he was playing out all of his concerns and grievances and praise and all of that. So again, you could argue that it's the governors who make the decisions, but in the end, people are going to have to vote for president one way or the other, and I think that a lot of it will be a referendum on whether they have confidence. Maybe it comes down to this. Do I have confidence that this is the guy I want to lead the country and can handle any particular crisis over the next 4 years? And Lord knows we don't have any idea what those will be.
Joe Biden, more press, is picking up the sexual assault accusation from this former Senate staffer. What should he be doing here, in your opinion?
Political reporters tend to be, and I'm only half kidding about this, frustrated political advisors. We often think to ourselves, gosh, if I were the candidate or I were his campaign manager, I'd do it this way. I have a really strong feeling about this, and that is that Joe Biden has totally mismanaged this, that he's had a lot of women come out and defend him. A lot of women who incidentally, went tooth and nail after Brett Kavanaugh back in 2018 and said women must be believed. Now here's a woman and they don't want to believe her. And if Biden had denied it 2 weeks ago when we were in this furor of the coronavirus, I think it would have been largely ignored. The story hadn't gotten as big and people weren't paying as much attention to Joe Biden. Now the story has built, the story of him failing to come forward and refute it and kind of hiding behind women has grown. So I think I assume he's going to deny it, but when he does, I think he's going to have lost either much of the fact that it would have been forgotten or much of the benefit for coming forward and confronting the allegations.
To be a little callous, because this is certainly important to Tara Reade, I don't know how much it matters politically because, as you mentioned, all anybody wants right now is to get out of this coronavirus mess. And also, the white-hot heat of the start of the Me Too movement has also passed. Maybe things would have been different. And anyway, Biden's got the nomination not wrapped up. So what are we going to do about it, even if it is true?
Well, and to be even more callous, you look at the two people that had the biggest, I'm talking about in sort of political life, allegations of Me Too against them. First of all, Donald Trump, who had not one but a dozen women come out against him and had a videotape in which he, in his own words, the Access Hollywood tape said all kinds of things, and he went on to win the election. And Brett Kavanaugh had this very impassioned plea without almost any evidence at all from Christine Blasey Ford, but she was an effective witness, and he's on the Supreme Court. So you could also argue, yes, this is embarrassing, and yes, it'll be tough for him, but in the end, it isn't going to affect Joe Biden's political fortunes. Should it? Well, here's an interesting thing about this. Some people are saying, well, God, this is just so terrible, and all these women who said women must be believed, we should treat Joe Biden and Tara Reade the same way. I disagree with that because I thought it was the wrong way to treat Brett Kavanaugh. I don't think women should be believed. They should be heard. But there's due process. And if not in the legal sense, in just a justice sense. And if there's, the fact is she didn't have any evidence. She didn't have anybody who was a witness who said, yeah, I remember that. I remember when it happened and this happened and you told me about it. And, it was certainly an awful story, but there was no backup other than her say-so. And it seems to me under those circumstances, you can't find fault with the guy for that. Well, similarly, with Joe Biden, I wouldn't say that Tara Reade should be believed, although I think she's got a much stronger case than Christine Blasey Ford did because there's evidence that she did contemporaneously, so her mother, her brother, some of her neighbors all said that she told them at the time. So she's got a much stronger case. But I don't think in any case anybody should just be believed. They make an allegation, well, we don't need to investigate. They're just to be believed.
Chris, I know you're a big baseball fan. You heard about this plan floated to break up the major leagues for this one season into 3 regional leagues to limit travel and get some games in later in the summer?
Well, I've heard versions of it, and playing with outside of crowds in Arizona and stuff. I don't know. At a certain point, does it cease to be the game and the league and the competition that you want? Would I rather see baseball than not? Yeah, but it almost feels meaningless to me. So I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Yeah, it might be a little weird to have games on and hearing the crack of the bat, but not, a single cheer.
Well, I've thought about that, because we're talking about a lot of sports, football, basketball, baseball. I mean, this sounds terrible for a newsman to say, you'd almost want them to pipe in fake sound because part of the fun of an event is to hear your team's going, the other team's going down and you hear defense. You almost want to hear that. So, if the only sound in a basketball game is the squeak of the sneakers, that's a pretty lousy spectator event.
Yeah, maybe it works on TV better with golf or NASCAR or maybe even, I don't know. Maybe that's about it. Chris Wallace.
Golf is perfect because all you need is Jim Nantz saying, hello, friends. And you fall asleep watching that anyway, so that would be perfect.
Yeah, good nap viewing. Chris Wallace, host of Fox News Sunday, thanks again for coming on. Talk to you soon.
You bet. Thank you.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network, download and listen to The Untold Story with Martha McCallum. The host of The Story on Fox News Channel sits down with major newsmakers each week to get their untold story. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. Rate and review the Fox News Rundown on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen.
And now, some good news with Tanya J. Powers.
There are some good things happening in the world despite the coronavirus pandemic. That's what it sounded like when Dr. Karen Omidvari, known as Dr. O, left Hackensack University Medical Center this week. He was the 1,000th coronavirus patient in New Jersey to be discharged from that hospital. He wasn't just a patient there. He also works as a pulmonologist in that hospital's intensive care unit, screening patients for COVID-19, and became a patient after he tested positive for the virus. In a video posted on the hospital's Facebook page, he was wheeled out to the cheers of his fellow doctors, nurses, and staff members wearing their blue scrubs, lab coats, and masks, and he waved at everyone lining the path of his exit. Dr. O is still recovering and has participated in clinical trials as the search for a treatment and vaccine for the coronavirus continues. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
It's time for your Fox News commentary. Guy Benson. What's on your mind?
A recent story in the Washington Post detailed the experience of a factory in southeastern Pennsylvania, the Braskem Petrochemical Plant, where 43 workers volunteered to live at the factory for 28 consecutive days. They worked in 12-hour shifts, round the clock, for medical supplies like masks and gowns for frontline healthcare workers. They were away from their families for nearly a month. No one left the plant ever for any reason. The country was in trouble. Healthcare workers needed help. Their plant produced critical materials, and they all raised their hands and said, "We're going to do it." They finally clocked out after 28 days on the job. There were a lot of heroes being minted as this country fights coronavirus, and these workers in Pennsylvania and many others like them are doing incredible work with no recognition. God bless these people, and God bless this country. What a story. This is Guy Benson, host of The Guy Benson Show.
You've been listening to the Fox News Rundown. Stay up to date by subscribing to this podcast at foxnewspodcasts.com. And for up-to-the-minute news, go to foxnews.com.
Love Fox News? Click the subscribe button to get more of the news and opinion you trust, and click the Fox News Rundown playlist for the latest episodes.